Bonafide, what drink you have tonight? Whee! All right, welcome people, welcome, welcome. It's Friday night, so let's party. We have to have a good time. Let's see what else we have here. Another good one. How many Trinis we have online? Come on, let's do. Whee! All right, Friday time, Friday fun.
I don't care what nobody say. Every carnival I done day. Plus I know all artists and only mass man. Them say
I'm out and about, I'm telling you.
where I'm from.
I'm from Trinidad and Tobago.
As a Trini,
A Trini, a Trini, a Trini.
Cause they know what you need us look.
Look.
And they like what you need us cook.
Cook.
And they like to get you need
Talk.
and they like you need woman walk. And we make good
Company.
Yeah, and we make good company. And we make good company. We just make it all the best for now. We just represent for we so proud. We just sell out all the strong. We just represent for we so proud. Them say we
I'm out and about, I'm telling you. Where you from? I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. A Trini. All right, take a little dance for Friday night. Look.
And they like what you need us cook. And they like to hear you need talk. And they love you need woman walk. And we make us
Company.
And we make us company. And we make us
Company. So who is ready to have fun Friday night? Wherever you are, take a little dance, stand up and dance, or sit in your seat and dance, but have some fun. I'm out and about, I'm telling you. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. Look. All right, welcome everybody. Take a dance. It's Friday night. Gotta have a little fun. Company. Everybody, take a trip. Hey, get a glass of water, glass of juice, glass of wine, whatever you have. Get a glass and join in. All right. Welcome everybody. Welcome to the book reading, live book reading this evening, June 26th. So good to see you all. And happy, have some regulars here, KWI, Bonafide, Colette, as a Trini. So good to see you all out this evening. I know you could be many other places, so I'm very happy that you've joined me this evening. So, without further ado, I'm going to just give a brief introduction to some of my memoirs. For those who've never joined us before, I'm going to just show you some of the memoirs I've written over the years. One of them, Red Car Long Legs, This talks about the time I lived in Southern California and all the adventures and misadventures. So we read from this book a couple of weeks ago. The first book I had written was Escape from Ireland. I lived in Ireland for about 7 years, and this book talks about all the adventures of living and working in Ireland and being an entrepreneur. Oh, hi, Suzanne. So good you could join us. So happy to see you. Now, last week we had a little fun. We read from Drive, a Trini expat comes home. So we had a lot of fun with this one last week, and some soca and carnival jokes. Another book I've written, Goodbye Frying Pan, Hello Fire, and that talks about moving to Toronto and all the hurdles one had to jump over to settle in a big city like this as a new immigrant to Toronto. And tonight I'm going to read from Where Are My Car Keys? And this talks about my mother's journey with Alzheimer's disease. I've also written the children's companion book, so an illustrated kids book about the same topic, written in the voice of one of my nephews who watched his granny through this journey with Alzheimer's disease. And tonight's presentation is dedicated to my aunt who died just recently from Alzheimer's disease. Her funeral was on Tuesday. So for Auntie Audrey Irish Defoe, I want to dedicate today's book reading because both Auntie Audrey and my mother died from Alzheimer's disease. So, you know, in their family, it was huge affliction over the years because several members of the family died from Alzheimer's disease. So what I'll do, and you heard those calypsos that I played at the beginning. My mother loved that song as a Trini. So I think we should play we should play a few verses one more time because she so loved that song. Let's play one more verse because this was her favorite. Even when she didn't have her full memory, she loved this song and she would dance to it because Gloria James just loved soca, and this was one of her favorites. So let's take a little dance for Gloria James.
I don't care what nobody say. Every carnival that I play, plus I know all artists and all the masters. Them say I'm a dana.
Who remembers this one?
I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. As a Trini, because they know what Trini does. Look. And they like how Trini does cook. And they like to get Trini
talk. I have to take off the glasses to do my dance, you know.
And we make good company.
And we make good company.
And we make good company.
All right. So we'll take a little pause from Isa Trini, which was Gloria's favorite song. I'm going to read the introduction to the book. Alzheimer's disease is described as the progressive deterioration of the mind, personality, and body caused by the degeneration of the brain. The disease can begin in late middle age and continue into old age, but what starts the brain's deterioration is still unknown. Learning about another family's journey can sometimes help in understanding and preparing if your loved one is diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. Everyone is affected by Alzheimer's disease differently, but an emotional roller coaster is an almost universal journey for caregivers and family members. This book describes our family's voyage as our mother Gloria James, or Mammy as we called her affectionately, battled Alzheimer's disease over a period of 12 years. It is a collection of stories beginning in 2006 when my siblings and I first acknowledged that our mother's mental and physical state were changing, until her eventual death in January 2018. One of our concerns was that many elderly parents of our peers in Diamond Vale, Diego Martin had also developed Alzheimer's disease or some other form of dementia. We joked about this, saying there must have been something in the water. We saw a pattern that could not be coincidental, and yet, as far as we knew, nobody was researching this trend. The cause of this debilitating condition is unknown. Would I develop the disease if my grandmother, my mother, my uncle, my aunt had this condition? Was it hereditary? Was it an affliction which plagued people who lived through World War II rations in Trinidad? Was it related to their diet? With so many questions and no answers, it's difficult not to worry. We don't want to become a statistic. So that's the thing, in our family, with so many people who experience Alzheimer's disease, it is a bit worrying for us. How many of you have relatives who suffered from Alzheimer's disease? Put it in the chat box. Let me see. Anybody out there? Send me a note. Let me see. Have you had anyone in your family suffer from Alzheimer's disease? Send me a note in the chat box. Who's out here? Yeah? Somebody else, let's see, put a note in the chat box. Let me know if you've had a relative who suffered from Alzheimer's. Anybody? No notes? Okay, so when I first noticed my mom changing, it was 2006 and I was living in Ireland. And my sister Colette brought mommy and her two sons on holidays to Ireland to visit. So I'll just read a short passage of some of the things we noticed. I kept the family busy with sights and trips all over Dublin. We did the hop-on, hop-off bus tour of Dublin and then a day trip to Wicklow County to see the waterfalls and Glendalough. Mommy seemed excited by all the new sights. However, she kept mixing up the names of places and counties, and it was a lot for her to digest. We also took a day trip to the aquatic center, and we tried all the slides and tubes. I observed small changes in my mother's behavior when I took her out one day for a drive to have some tea. We visited Phoenix Park, the largest park in Dublin, and I showed her some of the beautiful gardens, the cricket pitch, and deer roaming freely in some areas. We then went to the tea rooms. My mother mumbled incessantly about nothing and looked visibly uncomfortable. I tried to put her at ease and have her enjoy the trip because she used to love sightseeing so much. She walked slowly and tentatively, and one of her knees was bent slightly to meet the other. Little did I know that her constant mumbling and feeling uncomfortable were just the start of a downward spiral leading to Alzheimer's. So these are some of the first signs that we saw. Yeah, Susan is saying her mom has dementia. Yes, but dementia, I guess, sometimes occurs as we advance in age, but Alzheimer's can start quite early in someone's life. Another time we noticed in 2006 again, we had a party in Dublin for some friends. Most of the guests sat in the sunroom at the back of the house and a few under the umbrella in the patio in the garden. The sunroom also served as a TV room. Since the World Cup matches were still taking place, we let the TV run through the party so those consumed by World Cup fever could watch. Shaka Hislop of Pearl Parkway, Diamond Vale, Diego Martin. My mother screamed at the television as advertising came on air. Shaka Hislop, the goalkeeper of the Trinidad and Tobago World Cup football team, was a former neighbor. who grew up on the same street where we were raised. His family was always involved in sports, and we felt proud to know he was representing our country. Everyone looked at me as Mommy screamed at the television and said, "Oh, she always does that," I replied. "No big deal." The concern was whether she thought the announcer was talking back to her. You see, Mommy lived alone at her home in Trinidad and enjoyed watching U.S. game show networks all day and night. Colette remembered seeing Mommy shout answers at the television, and she even asked her little dog to answer the questions the show participants couldn't answer. So, we had a lot of jokes when my mother would do what would be considered crazy things. So we'd say either laugh or you cry. So one would have different responses to the Alzheimer's patient's behavior. We chose to laugh. And I think that was a good way to, to cope. So anyone else in the, tell me in the chat box if you know of people who are suffering from Alzheimer's at the moment. Anybody? No? All right, let's play another one of Mommy's favorite songs. Because she liked as a Trini, and then she also liked Palance. And one time when we went home for Carnival in 2011, this was her favorite song. So I'm just going to play a little bit just to liven up our evening today. What's happening? It's not going. Tiffany? Alright, I guess. I didn't get the one I wanted, but we'll continue with as a journey. I'm telling you.
Where we from Trinidad and Tobago. As a Trini, from Trini. Oh, cause they love how Trini does look. And they like how Trini does cook. And they like to hear Trini talk.
Short interlude. Get yourself a little drink and then take a little chip for Gloria. This was her favorite.
And we make us company. And we make us company. And we make us company. Some of them, boy. I'm party until it's late. I just end up in my red, white, and black.
So now I'm going to tell you about 2009 when Gloria came to visit me again in Ireland, but this time her Alzheimer's disease had really advanced. Yes, so I was living in Tramore, County Waterford, which is in the southeast part of Ireland. And in 2009, my mother Gloria came to visit me with one of her friends, Kim. Now, even though she had Alzheimer's disease, she still liked to travel because travel was her thing. She would travel every single year, go on vacation somewhere. She realized that her mind was going, so she decided she would ask one of her best friends to travel with her. So her friend traveled with her to Ireland. And unfortunately, when she got there, she couldn't understand how she got there, and she asked us many, many times, how did I get here? How did I get here? How did I get here? And I had to explain it repeatedly. But that's how it is with the Alzheimer's patient, and one has to be very, very patient with the Alzheimer's person. Now, let me tell you what it was like driving from Dublin to get my mother back to Tramore County, Waterford, where I live. My plan was to fly to London Gatwick Airport to meet my mother and Kim and fly back with them to Dublin. This meant renting a car in Waterford, driving to the Dublin airport, leaving my car in the long-term parking, getting an early jet to Gatwick, taking the Gatwick shuttle in between terminals. So I met them. They had left their baggage in baggage claim. I took them on the shuttle back to Gatwick terminal so that they could get a flight to Dublin. And then after checking in, I tried without success to get them to eat lunch. It was going to be a long journey flying to Dublin, followed by at least 2.5 hours drive to Waterford. We had something on the plane, they protested. We had something on the plane. We don't need to eat. Yes, I said, but that was hours ago. Please eat something. Mommy was extremely disoriented and nervous. She spilled all her tea on the table in the restaurant and was already talking about going back to her house in Trinidad. It was going to be a very, very long day for me. We finally boarded the flight to Dublin, and by the time we arrived, my 2 elderly companions were at their wits' end with fatigue. As we drove to Waterford, Mommy got more and more agitated. The small roads were long and winding through every town. I knew every bend in the road, but for the unsuspecting traveler, it was grass, forest, trees, and bush, endless bush. "You are taking me in the forest to kill me," Mommy protested. "Where are we going? Put me out now so I could take a taxi home." There was no stopping her, and Kim sat quietly, not knowing what to do. Mercifully, we got home in good time, and we were able to get Mommy settled in Tiffany's room. "Where am I?" she asked. "How did I get here?" I had to explain about 3 or 4 times how they flew from London via Barbados, then from London to Dublin, then we drove from Dublin to Tramore. "How did I get here?" she asked again. So I explained it again. "Tramore? No, it's Tramore, Tramore," Mommy kept saying. It was truly funny. I unloaded the luggage, took back the rental car, retrieved my 2-seater van from parking at the rental car company, and it was a solid 12-hour journey for me. 12 hours to collect my guests. Now, the following day, I'll tell you what happened. I had recently participated in the filming of an episode of the Irish Dragon's Den, and the following morning, I had my initial appointment with the Dragons, who pledged support in my business. Since the journey to collect my mother and Kim was so arduous, I decided to give myself a break from driving and take the train to Dublin for my appointment. Kim was left in charge of the house. I showed her how to navigate around the kitchen, and I left everything to catch that early train to Dublin. The journey was ideal for collecting my thoughts and getting paperwork together for the meeting ahead. As the train traveled through County Kildare, my mobile phone started ringing. It was a call from the house. Kim was extremely flustered and worried because my mother was trying to run away and had attempted to open the front door many times to take a taxi back to her house in Diamond Vale, Digomatic. She kept threatening to push Kim over. I felt helpless because I was on a train. There was no turning back. I asked Kim to put Mommy on the phone so I could speak to her and reassure her that everything was okay. After about 5 minutes of talking, she calmed down a little, and I promised to return home as early as possible. I knew my visit to Dublin could take all day, so I just prayed that Mommy would remain calm until I returned. So that was one episode where my mother lost all control. I wasn't around. She was with an elderly friend trying to push her over to push her way out of the house, and in her mind, take a taxi back to Diamond Vale, Diego Martin, to her house. And at that time, she was in Tremor, County Waterford. Hello, Sherry-Ann. Good to see you. So somebody tell me, have you ever been in a situation like that where you had to try and control an elderly person who was getting quite violent, actually? Anybody ever had such a situation? It's not easy, but with the Alzheimer's patient, you have to. That's why there are people who specialize in the treatment of the elderly, because for the average person, it would be quite difficult. Anybody here has ever had to take care of an elderly person who experienced dementia? I know Suzanne is experiencing that right now, but I think her mom is calm. Anybody else? Oh, hello, Jill. Good to see you. Yes, so anybody else who has experience here with an elderly person experiencing dementia? Tell me in the chat box. Anybody? Nobody. Okay. I'll continue. Now, that same time when my mom was visiting, I decided to take them to church because Kim wanted to go to the Catholic church for Christmas. So let me tell you all what happened. I had started cooking the Christmas meal a full day in advance to prepare a wonderful feast for our visitors. Since my mother and Kim had to spend their vacation in a cold, old stone house where the damp came in no matter how much the house was heated, the least I could do was make them a hearty meal. I prepared roast turkey, ham leg, pork chops, roast lamb, macaroni pie, rice dishes, and a variety of salads. I made the traditional black Christmas cake with rum and fruits, fruit salad, ice cream, and any other dish I could imagine, for good measure. It was a meal for a family of 15, when in fact it was just 4 of us. Needless to say, we had food for days after Christmas. Kim had been clamoring to go to the Catholic church for Christmas Mass. I could not deny them the Christmas Mass, but I only had a 2-seater van at that time. So I decided to ask Sean, an old boyfriend, if he wouldn't mind taking us to church. I knew his routine, and I hadn't spoken to him for a long time, but I made the bold request that he would come and take my mother and her friend Kim to Christmas Mass. So he was polite and he said yes, he would. On Christmas Day, we rose early, had a light breakfast, and about 10 minutes before Sean arrived to take us to church, I went to check on my mother, who was dressing feverishly in her room. She was dressed in a beautiful sleeveless blue and white dress with a light cotton shawl and silver sandals, with a silver handbag to match. The only problem was that it was 1 degree Celsius outside and the wind was howling, making it feel like -5 degrees Celsius. In her mind, she was probably in the Caribbean on Christmas Day. "Mommy, please, let's change everything and put on some warm clothes," I begged. "But then, people at church won't see my dress," she said. Despite losing her memory, she hadn't lost the desire to dress up and look beautiful. It was ingrained in her from childhood. The Irishes used to dress up and look beautiful. Her whole family loved to dress to impress, including my grandmother. So that's one thing I found quite interesting. Even though she was losing her mind, All she wanted to do was dress up and look lovely and make sure everybody saw how beautiful she looked. So what do you all think about that? Let's see in the chat box. Yes, so Colette, yes, Colette took care of mommy for quite a few years. Anybody else notice anything peculiar with a person with dementia? Please leave a note in the chat box. I am going to play another song. Let's see what we can play now. Palance. Let's play Palance. This was one of Gloria's favorites.
At Asana, we know people work in all sorts of different ways. So with Asana, your team can do any project in the...
Taking a little... Uh-oh. Palance. We're taking a little chip for Gloria because Palance was one of her favorite calypsos back in 2011. It's Friday night. I want everybody to get a glass of wine, get a glass of rum punch, juice, whatever you have, and take a little chip. This was Gloria's favorite song. Everybody, come on. 3, 4, balance. Next side. Balance, 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 balance. All right, it's Friday. Come on, folks. Take a little jump. Yes, since last time we play Masters. Jump up, jump up. Everybody, come on. One more time. Balance, 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 balance. All right. All right, you take a pause from the balance. Okay, that was fun. Just a little balance break. So now I'm going to give you a few jokes. The same Christmas when Gloria and Kim visited us in Ireland. After Christmas Day, we had to do a little more entertaining because it was cold inside. But I thought, we'd take them for a little drive. So let me tell you a few jokes. After spending 2 days indoors, we needed a day out so I could keep my sanity and the guests could see some of Ireland. We rented a car and I took the old girls to see the most recent 3D movie. My mother and Kim shouted at the screen wearing their 3D glasses, much to Tiffany's amusement. They really enjoyed the action film. The following day, I decided to take them to Cork City for a quick visit. With the short daylight hours, I wanted to leave early in the morning, but we ended up setting out closer to midday because it took hours to get them dressed to leave. My mother said, I want to shop. I want to shop at Marks and Spencer's. I want to buy a dress and I have lots of money. So she knew that she had brought money for shopping. And as I mentioned before, she loved to dress up. So even with Alzheimer's disease, all she knew is that she had money and she wanted to shop and she had lots of money. So that's what she told me. I knew she had money and had been burning to spend it for something for days. However, I had no energy for a shopping trip and she couldn't walk very fast anyway. She couldn't walk long distances. As we drove to Cork, I pointed to various interesting places along the way. I had done the drive so many times while working at events, I could do it with my eyes closed. My mother kept blurting out driving instructions along the way. Go so! I said, go so! This was amusing, since she had never been to Cork before. At Swan Lake near Middleton, the fog made the lake barely visible. As I pointed out the area, I noticed that Mommy was still wearing her 3D glasses from the movie the night before. She couldn't possibly have seen anything clearly with those glasses. I turned around and Kim was not wearing her everyday glasses. She must have left them at home. So she wasn't seeing anything either. My sightseeing tour was a futile effort. So anyway, I had taken them out for a nice drive and all of that, and I was pointing out the sights, but I might have well been speaking to myself because nobody was seeing. So it was quite funny, especially the 3D glasses, because you know, if you wear 3D glasses, you can't see anything. So that was one of the jokes of the drive. So another time too, I'm going to tell you about what happened one night when I decided to go out with a friend for New Year's Eve. I was going to have one night off for a change of scenery and fun, and my friend Leo had made reservations at Clontarf Castle in Dublin, where we could go for New Year's Eve to a party and then stay overnight. I zipped into Waterford and picked up a lovely silver dress. While packing my bags to leave for the night, Kim and Mommy showered me with advice on what to wear. "You must wear stockings. You can't have your legs out," said Kim. "That dress is too short," said Mommy. "You should have chosen something else." "You can't wear a G-string underwear," said Mommy. "That's so common and low class for a lady. I'll lend you one of my knickers." "Mommy, yours may be a bit too big for me," I said. "I'll see what I have." Tiffany couldn't stop laughing. It amused us to see the two old grannies trying to help me prepare my outfits for a night out. I left Kim in charge of the home with extra food in the refrigerator and ideas of what meals they could prepare for the next day. Kim wanted to go for a walk around the small town, and I agreed, since she was fit and needed some exercise. Free at last, I thought, as Leah and I drove happily out of town. We were very excited about the upcoming night of fun. It was going to be a large dinner party with hats and whistles, and an opportunity to stay overnight at Clontarf Castle. Reports of a pending heavy snowfall filled the airwaves, but not much had fallen by that time. We hoped to be safely tucked away at night at Clontarf Castle with no worry about when the storm hit. When we were on the M9 highway just passing Kilcullen, I got a call from my neighbor in Tramore. Kim had fallen in front of the house. She couldn't walk, and they had called for an ambulance. So can you imagine? It was the last, or the only night away from the girls, and one had fallen, and it turns out she had broken her hip. So to find out what happened next, you have to get your copy of Where Are My Car Keys, because that's a story all by itself. Anyway, but Can you imagine them telling me how to dress, what to wear, and mommy offering to lend me her knickers? That was so funny. Yes, I see some people enjoying that one in the chat box. It sure was funny. All right. Now I'll tell you about another time when I went home to Trinidad. It was 2011. And by that time I had moved to Canada, moved back to Canada. And my mother's Alzheimer's disease had really progressed very far by that time. One thing though, she loved her car and she loved to drive. So even with Alzheimer's, she was still driving in 2011. And we were a bit concerned about the driving, you know, being a danger to herself and the public. But we still let her drive. And in 2011, unfortunately, her car broke down and had to go to the mechanic. She had to take it to the mechanic. I want my car. I so want my car because I have to go out. I said, Mommy, don't worry about it. We will take you where you need to go. Despite my best efforts, there was nothing I could say or do to prevent her from walking down the street in the blazing sun to the mechanic's shop. I took her by the hand to guide her back to the house, but she was very strong and very angry. She threatened to punch me, and I had to let her go. With a stick in one hand and a mission firmly cemented in her head, she made her way down the road to the mechanic's shop, where her car was being repaired. That morning she walked with energy, commitment, and determination that she hadn't displayed in a very long time. The mechanic conducted his business from his front yard, and on that very day the residents on the street were hosting a big carnival breakfast party. My concern was that the mechanic had some vicious guard dogs in his yard. Given the potential for a disaster to unfold, I prayed that he had fenced them in at the back. Mommy was wearing a black sleeveless blouse with patterns and a pair of white leggings. That outfit was fine for the house, but not suitable for walking down the street. However, she was determined to go just the way she was, and there was nothing I could do to stop her. That mechanic better have my car ready, she threatened. He's had it for days now. I tried calling my brother, who was at the breakfast party, to ask him to look out for Mommy. She used to say Brent was her son in whom she was well pleased. Colette and I were the wayward women who went astray and lived abroad. So I called her son in whom she was well pleased to find his mother and bring her safely home so she wouldn't get lost in the crowds at the breakfast party. About half an hour passed and I wasn't able to reach him. However, I saw Mommy walking back up the street full of energy, like when she left. She said she hadn't seen the mechanic and there was too much noise. What a relief. She had returned in one piece. I served her some lunch and a cold drink. She would have been dehydrated after her walk in the hot sun, but she wouldn't really have noticed. Okay, Mommy, it's time to get changed for the party. You are going to the Senior Achievers Carnival Fete, I said, hoping she would get out of the transparent leggings and wear something different. Change for what? She said, puzzled. Remember, you're going to the party this afternoon. It's your favorite carnival dance, I told her. Time to change your clothes. I'm not changing my clothes, she said stubbornly. Yes, you are, I said. You can't go in the same clothes you've worn all day. I coaxed and pleaded about 15 minutes, but she refused to change. Eventually, I gave up. It wasn't worth the fight. A great deal of patience is needed with someone suffering from Alzheimer's disease, and I was not really blessed with the patience to say the same thing repeatedly. Where are we going? She asked half an hour later. We're going to the Senior Achievers Carnival dance, I said, for the umpteenth time. That's your favorite carnival dance. You'll get to see all your friends. When we arrived, Mommy walked in slowly through the gates as I gave our tickets. "Hi, Gloria, how are you?" asked a few elderly ladies and gentlemen. "Fine, thanks," my mother answered, although I got the impression she really didn't know who these people were. Even though we arrived a few minutes early, many of the patrons who were over 70 years old were already at the venue reserving their tables and chairs. The younger ones, who were probably in their 60s, would arrive fashionably late to events. But the elderly were there early because they were worried about not having anywhere to sit down. Why sit when you were going to a carnival dance? But I guess if you had arthritis in your knees like my mother, a seat was vital. I was lucky to see 2 empty chairs at a table near the entrance when we walked in. The O'Neills, our childhood friends, occupied 2 seats at the table, so I was happy to see them and have a chat. They gave Mommy a frigid stare and cold shoulder, and I felt some tension. She said a big hello with a smile, but I doubted she recognized these people. Mommy must have slighted them in the past, but I didn't know the story. Surely they should have known she was not mentally stable. They were of sound mind, like most of the people at the party. Was my mother the only one suffering from a form of dementia at that event? Why weren't the elderly able to recognize dementia in their peers? These were questions I kept asking myself. The soca music was blaring and my mother got onto the dance floor immediately. They were playing Isa Trini. And so she joined the others who were on the floor. Arthritis or not, in her knocking knees, she didn't seem to mind. I saved her seat for her with a bag and spoke to the friends around. She came to sit down for a short while and I brought some food and drinks. As soon as she ate, she was back on that floor. She danced and danced. A friend came to pick us up at 4:30 and it was just enough time, I think. The dance hall was sweltering hot with many large fans, but the intense heat was wearing me out and I was seated half of the time. At last we returned home and I got Mommy ready for bed. She was tired and needed no coaxing to have a shower and get dressed. "Oh, my knees hurted me so much," she said, in pain. "Why my foot hurted me so much?" "That's because you danced at the party," I explained. "You enjoyed the soca music so much you hardly sat down." "Party? What party?" she asked. So, can you imagine? She had danced for like almost 3 hours. And she didn't even remember she had gone to a party. She was in pain from all the dancing. She didn't remember she went to a party. And she was dancing to Isa Trini all the time. So let me play that song again because that year Isa Trini was popular. So let's play it one more time. Just for Gloria. Because that was her song. 2011 Carnival.
These days, we all must find new ways to get our work done. With Asana, your team can...
All right. This was the song that Gloria danced to for 3 hours. Well, of course, they played other things, but come on. When you said, oh yes, the over 70 crew. This is their kind of soca song. All right. How many Trinis we have on the call? Women in the band are telling you. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. Ah, the carnival costume. Here we go. I played mass. Who wants to play mass in 20? 21. Let's see how many. How many of you playing mass next year?
And we make a company. Yeah.
And we make a company.
And we
Mass, mass, play mass. Mass in your mass, play mass.
We just dictate all the place for now. We just represent for we so fast. We just sell out all the strong liquor. We just represent for we so fast. Them say
A man and a bad telling you
where we from? We
from Trinidad and Tobago.
As a Trini, as a Trini, a Trini, proper Trini, a Trini.
We playing mass. Let me see. Oh, KWI Bonify. We playing mass in 2021.
And they like to hear Trini talk, 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 talk. And they love Trini woman walk.
I think Toronto have a carnival jump up for Black Lives Matter tomorrow. I can wear my costume and go. KWI Bonify, what you think? Should I wear my costume and go down the road? They hiring a truck.
About the intelligent, I just end up in the rain.
We're taking a little trip for Gloria,
I don't
alright?
care what nobody say. Every carnival I done day. Plus I know all artists and only mass man.
It's Friday night, so we're having a little fun.
I'm telling you, where I'm from.
I'm from Trinidad and Tobago.
As a Trini, a Trini, as a Trini, a Trini, proper Trini, a Trini. Oh, cause the love of Trini does
Look, 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 look.
and the love of Trini does cook.
See me there.
And they like to hear Trini talk, 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 talk. And they love Trini.
Oh, hi Donna, good to see you.
Walk.
Yay, Friday night fun.
And we make a company. And we make a company. And we make a company.
Alright, woo.
Think it's only place for now. Some of them, we just represent for we so now. Some of them, we just
It's one of my favorite headpieces, so I love to use it as a prop in our book readings. Next time I'll bring out another one. Alright. Well, thanks for indulging me in Isa Trini. As I said, it was one of Gloria's favorite one of my mom's favorite calypsos during her time with Alzheimer's disease. She really enjoyed dancing to that one. She could go for hours. Isa Trini. She really loved it. Now, I'm going to fast forward about 5 years. My mom had gone to one senior's home and then a second one where she stayed for quite a few years, about 4 years before she finally passed away. And I'll tell you all about a few funny situations. Now, by that time, she couldn't really walk and didn't recognize us, but she still liked a little fun. So, there was, I'll tell you a funny situation about her stay at Brent's Manor. It was a senior's home up in the hills in St. Joseph. A tall, muscular physiotherapist, who I called Filbert in the book, he came to do rehabilitation with some of the residents at the manor. Filbert looked like a bodybuilder or someone who had consumed a great deal of protein powder and or steroids. He did a modest trade with the residents and posted every small progress on Facebook so we could observe from far away. My mother hadn't walked in a year, and Filbert promised he could make her walk again with the right exercises. Filbert showed one lady who partially recovered the use of her legs after a stroke and was able to step forward. It was encouraging to watch. Mommy, who by this time didn't seem to recognize me or other family members, certainly recognized Filbert. and we hired him to do exercises with her. He worked with several elderly patients on site so they could exercise and regain some mobility. The nurse told me that Mommy really liked him because he was good looking. The first time he came to do exercises with Mommy, she smiled and winked at him. When he came into a room, her eyes would light up and she would smile so happily. The same mother who did not follow the nurse's instructions would kick out her foot when Filbert asked her to do the exercises. Even in her state of dementia, she knew a good-looking man when she saw one, and she blushed uncontrollably. She even spoke to Filbert when he asked her to do the exercises. The most miraculous story for us happened when the other patient in Mummy's room died of complications. My mother hadn't been able to utter full sentences to us, and we assumed she wouldn't speak anything that made sense to us ever again. However, she observed everything that happened around her and listened carefully. Filbert reported that day, after the sick woman's death, that he was doing exercises with Mommy, and she told him, "The woman's dead! The woman's dead!" He was shocked and sent me messages right away. Nobody would have explained anything to my mother when they removed the woman's body from the room. They assumed Mommy was incapable of understanding. This incident demonstrated to me the importance of not ignoring the elderly or even speaking badly about them in their presence. One never knew what they could understand or retain. Any statement that could cause pain or unnecessary worry should be avoided. Yes, so, as I said, my mother recognized a good-looking man and she would smile sweetly at Filbert. And we thought she would never speak again. We thought she didn't understand what was going on. Well, in fact, she was observing and seeing everything. And she spoke to him and she told him what she was observing. So what you all think about that? Well, one says, "Occur, Mrs. Gloria." Yes, occur is right. Yes, she really liked Filbert. Oh, hi, Shelley. Good to see you. Gloria loved life. She lived it to the fullest. Despite, yes, she did. She did. Yeah, but we were really surprised when she told Filbert what she saw, because she wasn't speaking to anybody. She would pinch the nurses, kick them. When I asked her one time, I was visiting us, I asked, "Mommy, did you pinch the nurse?" She shook her head, no. She would bite them. So, she was quite mischievous. Even when she couldn't talk, she was always up to mischief. So those were a few fun situations. Of course, the ending is sad, but, I'll just read one short part, the last birthday party we had for Mommy, because every time I happen to go back, oh, hi, Michelle, good to see you. Every time I happen to go back to Trinidad at Christmas time, I would always stay for December 29th to celebrate my mother's birthday. So in December 2015, Tiffany and I returned to Trinidad to celebrate my mother's 83rd birthday. Tiffany hadn't seen her grandmother in 2 years, and by that time, Mommy had lost a significant amount of weight. And she still had a hearty appetite. So she was eating and the food was just passing through. When Tiffany first saw Mommy, she held on to me and sobbed. "Why is she like that? What happened to Granny? Why is she like that? She's so skinny." When she calmed down, I asked her to just hug Granny and tell her stories, read for her. Granny would have wanted her to be happy. At least she was still alive. She was a great fighter and survivor. Yes, so that would be the last passage I'll read for you all tonight, because the end is, you know, eventual death. And with Alzheimer's disease, you know, we never know when a patient would die. We didn't know when our mother would die, but she held on for a long time until she was 85, and the body just gave up. But as I said, I played some of her fun songs, because when she couldn't walk, she would dance with her hands, you know, like palance from side to side. So it was fun to watch. Oh, Shelley said, hardest part when your loved one no longer recognizes you. Yes, definitely. But I would always give her the benefit of the doubt that she recognized me as somebody she knew. In fact, one time she called me Wallace, and Wallace was her oldest brother. So she knew that I was family, but she didn't quite know who. So she called me Wallace. So that was good enough, because it was the name of a family member. Yes, well, thank you so much, everyone, for attending tonight. And we'll have another book reading soon. If you're free next Friday evening, put in the chat box that you're free, and we can do another book reading next Friday. I'll also give you the link to my website where you can read about all the books that I've written so far. It's JennylyndJames.com. So I'm going to put that link in the chat box, and you can check out my website. And don't forget to like my Facebook page, Jennylynd James Writer Facebook page. Please like my page before you leave tonight. And thank you so much for attending. I'm going to play one more soca song so we can have a little fun. Let's see what we're going to play. Band of the Year. Let's play Band of the Year. We did that last week. That's a nice
Trouble
fun
keeping track of your team's work? You need a sauna. Capture everything.
Yes. This is a nice one to end the night. So thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it. I know you could be doing anything else on a Friday night, but so happy you were able to join me tonight. Thanks for listening to Where Are My Car Keys? A Mother's Journey with Alzheimer's Disease. Turn it up, turn it up. Turn it up, turn it up. Let's take one last trip Friday night.